Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining in so early. It's 10 o'clock already. So we should be starting in a few minutes. We just want to give room for more people to join in. I think we should wait for about 5 minutes for more people to join in before we proceed. Thank you very much for joining. Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us at the first Ttswg Introduction to Sustainability webinar. We're glad that you are joining us, and by joining us, we want to believe that you are interested in gaining knowledge about sustainability. For those of you that don't know, the Ttswg is the Telecommunications and Technology Sustainability Working Group. And sustainability basically has to do with meeting our present needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. So I'm welcoming you again. My name is Elizabeth Odeni, and I work with the Ttswg Secretariat, where we have organized this event or this training or workshop, should I say, for telecoms and technology organizations, tech enthusiasts, sustainability enthusiasts, sustainability professionals, I guess, as well. And for different people and different sectors, sustainability might look like ensuring that you have a good relationship with your community so that other businesses that come into that community can have an opportunity to be successfully established in those places. For some other businesses, sustainability could be using less paper in your organization, or it could be making sure that you manage your energy usage. For some other people, it could be sourcing for an alternative means of energy. And I'm sure this would really have to do with the telecoms and tech sector, because they spend more time using their gadgets and electronics. And from research, we find that all of these things contribute to carbon emissions. In fact, a research that we did and that you can check out on our website at www.ttswg.org shows that sending one less thank you email could save 16,433 tons of carbon a year, which is equivalent to 3,334 diesel cars, taking them off the road. But before we go into our training, I'd just like to take us through what the Ttswg is about, what we do, what we stand for, because we got a lot of questions from sign-ups for this training concerning, oh, what's the Ttswg really about? Why are you putting together this training? Is it only for tech and telecoms organizations, and questions like that? So I'll just run through a couple of slides to take us through what the Ttswg is about. And from our participants, I can see that some of our members are here. I can see some people from BCN, from MTN, from IHS. Well, let me just go ahead and share that. Okay. The Ttswg, again, is the Telecommunication and Technology Sustainability Working Group. And why were we formed? What is the Ttswg about? Because telecoms and technology is now a major way of going about our daily lives and going about our daily businesses. We found it necessary for us to look into the role of telecoms and technology and how it plays in and ties into sustainability. So what the Ttswg seeks to do is to bring together different telecommunications and technology organizations to come together, look at how they impact the planet, look at how they impact the environment, look at how they impact businesses and people, and see how they can work more sustainably, how they can be more effective, how they can contribute to the government as a whole, contribute to the sector as a whole, and see that everything that we do in terms of our business economy, in terms of environmental management, in terms of energy management, is in line with international best practices. So just going to get it. Okay, so it says the Ttswg was formed to address the challenges of sustainable development in the ICT and tech sector. And this is a collaborative effort for different organizations to come together to make sure that there are better policies that attend to sustainability, that there are standards, formulations, that people understand how the telecoms and tech sector contributes to impacts and emissions in the nation, Nigeria, and even as a whole. So that is basically why the Ttswg was formed. So a value chain basically includes the value chain in the telecoms, which are operators, regulators, value-added services, telcos, OEMs. We also have the technology organizations as well within the value chain. I just want to run through this very quickly. Then we have our current members of Ttswg as shown here: MTN, HP, IHS, Main One, Phase 3 Telecoms, BCN, and many others. And we are working with the NCC to see how we can help this sector be more sustainable. We're working with other government partners as well to see how, because as we have noticed, and as if you have noticed, our nation, Nigeria, is looking to align with best sustainability practices all over the world. And we've seen that our government is not lax about this and is willing to work with groups and organizations to develop sustainable standards for their different sectors. So the Ttswg is the sector, or is the group that would love to work with, or is working with government to establish sustainability set of rules and regulations for the telecoms and technology sector. So that's one of the things that we look to do. So our board members, we have Engineer Mohammed Abduwaya, who's our board chair. We have Dr. Wumi Hassan, who's our vice chair. We have Dr. Chris Uwaji, and they call him the Oracle, is also on our board. We have Madam Iklimatu Abubakar. We have Professor Francis Idachapa. These are our board members. And our vision, mission, and objective, which I have mentioned earlier on, but here our vision is to champion a sustainable and profitable telecoms and technology sector for national development. So we get questions like, how does this tie to my bottom line in the long run? But as the definition of sustainability implies, it is doing what is necessary right now so that the future generations do not suffer. So in the long run, it impacts your business positively. Sustainability impacts your business positively because it gives different organizations, telecoms organizations or technology organization, the right standing to even gain investment from as wide as they can think about. Right now, we have things like green bonds going on, and it's only available to sustainable organizations. So I guess that is just my way of saying that organizations should think more towards sustainability, should think towards imbibing the practice of sustainability in their activities, in their strategies. And then our mission is to ingrain sustainability systems in the telecoms and technology sector. I just hope the whole sustainability word I keep throwing about is the reason we are here, to understand what that is, to be introduced to the concept, to get a more refined and simpler understanding of it. So yes, then our objective is to prefer solutions to the ESG challenges of the sector. And for most telecoms and tech sectors or organizations, we get questions like, do we really contribute to emissions? We're not a hardware company, but technology companies that create gadgets, are hardware companies. They say, oh, but we don't produce, we are probably a software company and other things. And research has shown a couple of other things through, or other ways through which organizations in the telecoms and technology sector contribute to this. You can check out our research on this at www.ttswg.org. Then another objective of ours is to provide an innovative platform to engage stakeholders in the sector, to position the telecoms and technology sector in Nigeria or industry as sustainability focused. Because as it stands, we have a larger world out there to compete with, and we are trying to gain ground as it has to do with sustainability. So that's why this group was established, to encourage collective action among stakeholders in the sector. Our focus area implementation are in standards formulation, solution enhancement, innovation, and advocacy. The Ttswg is a not-for-profit organization, and we are working, as I said earlier, we're working with different government organizations to provide solutions, sustainable solutions to the sector through standards formulation. This will not be a new idea of ours. Rather, we are working with government organizations that are already doing that, and we're focusing on the telecoms and technology sector. Solution enhancement, such as this training, creating solution by giving understanding and knowledge to the topic, and also helping organizations practice better in the field of sustainability. Innovation and advocacy as well. Just going to go forward. So we have some activities coming up in the year, apart from the training, which we'd like you to be a part of. We have a webinar coming up on the 15th of September. So you might want to mark that in your calendar, and we'll be happy to send you invitations about this, more information about this as we go along. Then we have an exhibition and conference coming up as well. So you can look forward to that happening. Yes, benefits of being a member of the Ttswg. You get access to networking opportunities with other industry players, regulators, and key industry decision makers. You also have the opportunity to define the sustainability direction for the sector. As I said earlier, the telecoms and technology sector in Nigeria is recently trying to find its ground in sustainability, which is why this group was formulated. And one of the benefits of being a member is that you get the opportunity to define the scope of sustainability for the sector. Then you gain practical understanding of sustainability. Amongst us here, we have organizations that already practice sustainability. We have those that don't practice. We have those that are interested in seeing how they can imbibe it, which is why we are all here. And we're very happy that you've decided to join us for this. So I hope that by going through with this training, you gain the necessary understanding or the needed understanding of how sustainability has to do with your sector and how you can practice it going forward. Then by being a member, you get access to a large pool of resources. We share resources from time to time on how sector players can solve national challenges, can contribute to sustainability, can imbibe those models and practices in their businesses, how they can position themselves to be international players as well. And I guess I answered some of these questions, but what are the roles of members? We got asked these questions in the sign-ups. They asked what are the roles of members in the working group? Members are expected to simply support and participate in the activities of the Ttswg, including meetings, mentorship programs, conferences, research contributions, and so on. as it stands, there are no membership fees needed to join the TTSWG. You can join TTSWG by going onto our website at www.ttswg.com. And I think an important question I need to respond to is the TTSWG open to all organizations to join? No, it's only open to telecoms and technology companies. It's not open to individuals. So if you're an individual that is interested in joining the TTSWG, you have to get your organization on board to join the TTSWG, because it's a group of different organizations being able to influence the sector and sustainability within the sector. And we got asked, what's the TTSWG governance structure? The Secretariat manages the affairs of TTSWG, and we're made up. I'm a member of the Secretariat, so we manage the day-to-day affairs of the TTSWG. The TTSWG is made up of board members, advisory partners, members, and the Secretariat, who all contribute collaboratively to its activities. And we got asked how are TTSWG activities different from CSR activities of member organization, and what does my organization benefit from joining the working group? I've gone through some of the benefits of joining the working group, but you should also know that TTSWG is the first sustainability focus group for the ICT and technology sector in Nigeria. And CSR activities are quite different from sustainability activities. And you get more information about this as you join the training, or as the training goes on, as the workshop goes on. And what are our focus areas? I've also gone through that in terms of standards formulation, solution enhancement, innovation, and advocacy. Okay. So I've succeeded in going through that quickly so that we can begin the workshop and the reason for why we are all here. You can contact us at the Secretariat through this information on your screen. I'll also be sharing the information in the chat box so that we don't miss out on this. But thank you very much again for joining us at the Introduction to Sustainability webinar. I'm pleased to introduce our trainer this morning, Mr. Dami Vera Cruz, who is a sustainability consultant and expert, and he'll be running us through what it means and what it means to be a sustainable company in telecoms and technology sector, and how we can imbibe the practice better. So I'll just hand over to Mr. Dami Vera Cruz. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you all for joining this training today. It's a privilege to be able to host this training with you and to be able to take you all on this particular training today as well. So thank you all so much for joining today. It's an exciting moment. So just give me a few moments, and let me just quickly share my screen so you can all see exactly what we are about to run through today. Okay, I hope you can see my screen. Hoping that my screen is visible. Okay, thank you very much again. Thank you for joining this workshop today. Very exciting moment as we run through introduction to sustainability for tech-driven enterprises. And when we first started this, it's going to be very, very difficult to do. We are going to be introducing you to the concept of sustainability, and especially within the tech industry. And like I mentioned, when we first started this, we're thinking maybe we should just open this for tech industries, but we realized that we all have a role to play, especially when it comes to technology, and we are all very key stakeholders with technology as well. So to everyone who's participating here today, to everyone who is also being present here, we thank you for taking the time on this pleasant Wednesday morning to join us for this particular training for the introduction to sustainability for tech-driven enterprises in Nigeria as well. Thank you so much. And this presentation is actually brought to you by, this training has been brought to you by we, the team at CSR in Action Consulting, and one of the leading sustainability firms in Nigeria and in Africa, and also in globally as well. We have officially started operations in Canada as well. So we are taking the whole gamut and we're taking the whole preaching of sustainability global as well. So we're excited that you are part of this journey as well for sustainability and beginning to change the idea and the concept of sustainability as a whole for Nigeria as well. So thank you so very much. Just before I go ahead, if you can just put in the chat box, really, what do you expect to gain from today's training session? If anybody just puts in the chat box, especially what you prefer, what you would like to gain, and what are you looking for to gain during this training session today? Just go ahead and just put it. I'm looking at it. Just watching to see what people have to go away with and what they want to go away with today's training. Anybody want to go ahead? You don't have to speak. You just type it out. What are you expecting to take away from today's training? Um, okay, I've seen one. Someone has put it in the Q&A. So this is from Christian Zibe. Hope to learn about Ttswg and how my company can benefit from Ttswg and also Ttswg benefit mine. Okay, thank you for that. I'm sure Elizabeth was able to answer some questions, but I'm sure we'll be able to get back to that. So thank you. But right now we're just focusing on understanding sustainability and bringing in sustainability as a whole. I'm curious to find out where and how my organization as an NGO play a role in this. Okay, how sustainability plays out in the telecommunications and telecom industry. Okay, thank you. I've seen your questions. Okay, thank you very much. What you're taking. Okay, I'm curious to find out. Yes, you definitely find out because we are all key stakeholders, like I've mentioned earlier today. Just put it in the chat box. As I don't think there won't be any need to raise your hand. Just put it in the chat box. Okay, so I'll just move on from that as well. Okay, I'll just move on from that. Okay, thank you for all the everyone who has put up their expectations for today's training is really exciting that I'm sure many of us would be looking forward. I'm sure even though we are quiet, I'm sure you're going to be very much going through this in a very simple manner as well. Understand the material risk for telecommunications and technology companies. Okay, thank you very much. And that is Mr. Aziz Ogundiro. Okay, thank you for that. For that comment, and thank you for actually putting that. Better understand sustainability issues that are material to telecoms and tech companies. Thank you very much, Sima, for that expectation as well. So thank you all for that, giving us all and giving me your expectations for this training. I hope that I'll be able to run through all of it, and by the time you're done with this training, your expectations will be met as we all go along. So thank you very much. I hope to benefit from the diversities and sustainable development strategies in agri-tech. Okay, thank you. I appreciate what Ttswg is all about. Okay, thank you very much for that. Very much appreciate that. So as we go along as well, we can see that sustainability is becoming a very relatively new term especially in Nigeria. So yes, I think from the graphics at the caricature image that we can see on our screen is that yes, the planet got destroyed, but for a beautiful moment in time, we created a lot of value for shareholders. You know, that's what it is. A lot of people are just worried, yeah, we destroyed the planet, but we created profits. We ensured that the profit, our investors and our shareholders got their returns, but at what cost in particular? And he said, when did we lose our way, Mike? From this, when did our reckless pursuit of short-term, cohesive take precedence over prudent, far-sighted corporate growth? When? So that's easy. May 2nd, 4 years ago. And remember that we blew out office party to celebrate it. So that's the thing, is like what happens in this case is like, from this lady's question, is that there was a time where everyone tends to be thinking short term. We want to make the profit now. And Mike, relatively today is specifically targeted at professionals within the telecommunications and tech industries, and also stakeholders within these industries who are new to sustainability but have a keen interest in this regard. We understand, like I earlier said, that sustainability is relatively new in this gamut of Nigeria, but it's something that many people have confused, and we say, oh, CSR is sustainability. I think Elizabeth also hinted at that. Where is that it's not just CSR is just an aspect of sustainability. Sustainability covers a whole lot of things, which we definitely will be running through today. And this introductory course would help participants and you all as well today to understand the concept and practice of sustainability and sustainable development. Core sustainability matters are challenging within the sector in Nigeria, as well as also give the benefits of actually sustainability reporting. And at the end of this course, participants will receive a certificate of attendance, which answers a question that someone asked earlier today. If we'll be getting, I think that was Murtala Abdullahi who has asked if there'll be a certificate of participation. And yes, to answer that question, yes, there will be a certificate of attendance at the end of this training. So please, we thank you all for again joining as well. So I've been getting more chats, and let me just read through them, what some other people have been saying that they want to take away from today's training. Kelechiku Kezie says, hope to learn how technology can drive sustainability. Okay, thank you for that. Olubenga says, better understand sustainability and its entire value chain as it affects telecoms and tech organization, vice versa, and the cost benefit. Thank you very much. We'll definitely touch base on some of these things as we go along. So thank you all again for your comments, and thank you for your participation. It's very, very key, and it's a very encouraging, when people, hello, can anyone, okay, someone says he can't hear me. Can you hear me, just to be sure? Just wait, I think can raise your hand just to confirm if you can hear me. Or just say yes if one person, okay, one person says loud, okay. So maybe just network, maybe Chidi, maybe it may just be network, but just to be sure. Yes, okay, just to be sure, okay. Okay, thank you very much. Just thank you for the confirmation that you can hear me clearly. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So again, like I was saying, thank you for your participation. Thank you that you are also all being on the chat box. Is very encouraging, especially for the trainer like myself, to see that people are engaging, and I'm just talking to myself. I'm sure that I'm actually communicating as well. So thank you very much for your participation and engagement. So I think can the presentation be sent? Most likely it will, but I think we will speak to the secretariat and try to find out what will be played out as well in this regard. So I'm sure the secretariat will definitely play a huge role and communicate if the presentation will be shared as well. So thank you all that have been asking about the presentation slides. I'm sure that they'll most likely be shared as well. So after attending this course, actually, and this very short session, I would like to take this in a very few times, and we all will be engaging. So after the session, you will have to understand, and you will understand, or you should understand, the business case for sustainability. When you think of profit, what is, I think someone like had mentioned earlier, yeah, the certificates will be soft copies. Sorry, I'm seeing questions, but I'd like to answer them as a goal. So the certificates of attendance will be a soft copy version, not hard copy. We are trying to be sustainable as well, just that we can't be printing and wasting paper. Um, so I think one of the questions that was asked, especially for Olumenga, was saying that the cost benefits for sustainability, and which is what we're trying to attend to today, as well as you can see the business case for sustainability. How do you ensure that you're going to make profit? How can you make profit as well in that regard? Then also after this training, you should be able to appreciate the concept of sustainability in the local, regional, and global context. It's very, very essential that we understand that, yes, as much as we are here in Nigeria, there is a global field that we are playing on, especially when it comes to technology. And it's the role of technology did come into very, very much into limelight during the whole COVID-19 pandemic, when the technology just decided to just blow off. And here we are again using technology, thanks to Zoom and Microsoft Teams and every other thing. And then we have finally have a clear understanding of the benefits and the value of sustainability reporting. So by the end of this training, I would hope that you all will be able to understand these three things and also have answers to any of the questions that you may also have as you started this training today. So thank you again. So now we're talking about the introduction. So now we're understanding of sustainability. And it's very, very essential, like I mentioned, that sustainability is relatively new in Nigeria. And a lot of people confuse sustainability with CSR or corporate philanthropy. And like, oh, I went to that, which is the same example I usually give a lot of times when, oh, I did something, when especially they say CSR, oh, CSR, I gave 10 beds to so and so hospital. I went to the school and gave them books. I did this. Yes, that is an aspect of sustainability because you're trying to grow the community, but it also goes beyond that. And amongst the many ways that this training has been, sustainability has been defined, one of the most fundamental is the ability to sustain, or to put it another way, the capacity to endure. So sustainability, to endure, we as a society must transform our markets. We are just not functioning in Nigeria. Like in Nigeria, for example, unfortunately, the whole FX, forestry, and forex is has played a very huge role. And we have inflation, we have all these certain matters. But because you carry out certain practices that are sustainable, there are some times where inflation would most likely come, but you are able to endure because you've put certain practices in place to ensure that whatever comes my way, I'm able to survive in that manner of speaking. So that's one of the ways and one of the many popular ways and simplest and most fundamental ways of sustainability, the ability to sustain, or their capacity to endure. So like it says, sustainability, the ability to sustain as well. And a lot of things is the foundation of leading frameworks, especially sustainability is the foundations for one of the leading frameworks for sustainability as well. And we all know these SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. And, it's very, very essential that we understand that this is very key, that we all know that the 17 SDGs have specific targets, to be achieved by 2030, no poverty, net zero emissions. I think that was one of the popular things, everyone is trying to achieve net zero emissions, good health, gender equality, life underwater, partnership for the goals, etc. These are the things, climate change, life underwater, life on land. These are the things, biodiversity that take on, a very, very essential thing with regards to sustainability. And the Sustainable Development Goals has become one of the major drivers of sustainability, especially globally, because a lot of organizations are pushing towards ensuring that all their activities align with either more than one or at least one of the Sustainable Development Goals of them. So what then is sustainable development? I know this then comes which can be interchanged. There's sustainable development and the sustainability. Is both, I think they both function the same way. They can be interchanged in certain different ways. And sustainability development and sustainable development has been, defined in many ways over the past few years. If you go online just right now and search sustainability or sustainable development definition, if you will find several things. But the most common and most popular, is sustainable development is the development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their own needs. This is very, very key because the way we consume now, especially when we look at Nigeria, are we also developing Nigeria in a way that, you know, our children and our children's children, and obviously our children's children will be happy, would be comfortable in ensuring that Nigeria grows. And I'm referring to Nigeria in this sense because we are still growing, but the way it's looking doesn't seem so promising. But now we're understanding these aspects, and there are certain things that now we can think of that when we come to sustainability, even as little and as simple as maybe bringing it in, maybe voting the next leader, would think that, okay, is this leader going to be ensuring that the development he's going to put forward will help my children and my children's children in the next few years? You know, when you start to think of that, that sustainability enters the littlest things in our daily lives, you know, there we have to understand that this plays a major role because you are thinking of your children's children. And permit me, for those of us who are non-Christians here, but it says that, I think there's somewhere in the Bible, it says a man who lives in inheritance. There's something in the Bible that says about a man who lives inheritance for his children. You know, that is not just about coming into the world and ensuring that you want to just be there. You want to ensure that you leave a legacy for the future generations to come. And that is where we all come into this space now as the technology and telecoms industry, to ensure that we are developing this industry and the tech and telecoms industry to ensuring that the future generation can benefit from it as a whole. And there are three pillars or dimensions of sustainability which come into play as as we go along. So using this framework, this reference, you know, Julia Davidson's landmark paper on sustainable development in year 2000, you know, provides a great reference for understanding, you know, the dimension of sustainability or sustainable development. Like I mentioned, we'll be using them interchangeably. And the paper argues that any economic strategy which attempts to match human needs and demands with demands of nature and to guide human development must foster respect for the non-human environment as well as a sense of mutuality or social ecological values. So what this means in essence is that as much as the organization or as your organization is trying to grow and you're trying to make profit, you're trying to do certain things, you know, build infrastructure, especially this is infrastructure plays a very huge role, especially with the telecommunications and technology space. Infrastructure plays a huge role. And as much as you want to do certain things, you have to ensure that even the non-human environment, so the land that you're functioning in, you have to take everything into consideration. It's not just one aspect, but you have to look at it with a whole, with a holistic point of view, and it's just not one point of view. So that's the way you're having to look at it. And you know, first, sustainable development. So the economic dimension, which is the first, is that sustainable development must ensure sound human flourishing by furnishing those goods which ensure human autonomy. So basically, as much as you are working in this technology space, you are producing goods that meet the needs, but at the same time does not destroy the environment. You know, the second is to preserve and foster forms of community well-being, ensure connection with past and future in terms of perspective, which is social dimension. And when we think of socially, we're thinking of community, and the community, not just the community when you operate, your organization as a whole, your employees form a community, and you have to ensure their well-being and, you know, ensure connection. And you see that there's connection between the future and past. You're thinking of the employees, you're thinking of your shareholders, you're thinking of all your host communities as well. And then third, it must preserve and foster ecosystem viability. And obviously that's the environmental section. The dimension is that you have to think of the environment as a whole. That's why a lot of conversations right now are focused solely and a lot more time on climate change. You know, the weather is hotter than it should be. There's more rain than there should be. There are certain things that should be happening that are not happening the way they should just because of climate change, and certain things, and the whole gamut of sustainability is changing. So what then is corporate sustainability? Because yes, we understand the whole idea of now sustainability. Then when you now bring it into corporate sustainability. So sustainability is the endurance of systems and processes. So this is very, very key. What systems and processes do you have in place in your organization to ensure, like I mentioned earlier, that you endure over time? So the sustained ability to endure. So what systems are you then putting in place and processes are you putting in place to ensure that your organization can and will endure whatever comes? And you know, there's always corporate sustainability, CSR, corporate social responsibility, corporate ethics, etc. Very much all these words are very much interchanged over time in your conversations. And I'm sure very much so. A lot of us here have also had these conversations over time where you're coming like, what is CSR? Or what's sustainability? What's this? So a company's delivery of long-term value. So that's what it is, according to the UNGC, delivery of long-term value. So like remember earlier when we were talking about that cartoon, you could ask where the lady was asking, where did we lose focus and focus so much on short term? But right now it's about the long-term value and its delivery, long-term value in financial, social, environmental, and ethical terms. So if you're looking at this, you're thinking of your profits. Yes, you're also thinking of that. You're also thinking for your employees. You're thinking of your communities. Then you're thinking of the environment. Am I damaging the environment? Am I responsible for the cause of floods? Am I responsible for the causes of emissions? And also, you're also considering ethical terms, and especially in the telecoms and technology space, one of the ethical things that most likely and terms that which play as a huge role for the telcos and technology is the aspect of data privacy. This is one of the things that is very, very essential for organizations. So when you're thinking of delivering long-term value in all these aspects, that's when you start to consider, corporate sustainability. And according to the business social responsibility, achieving commercial success in ways that honor ethical values and respect people, communities, and the natural environment. So basically, you are, like I mentioned, like it's very, very simple. Honor ethical values, respecting the people, you're respecting the communities. You're not just doing what you want to do, but you're engaging, you're respecting these people as well. So this defines and this brings about what actually corporate sustainability as a whole is. Okay, then how can business be? So basically, like I'm sure many of us here would be very much essential. This is the question that a lot of us would have been asking. It's a challenge and it's a constant challenge, especially within the business environment. How can a business be profitable at the same time contribute to sustainable development? That is a question that I'm sure we'll try to answer, but it's a question that I'm sure very much everyone here will try to see. Yes, I'm trying to be sustainable, I'm trying to do this, but yet as a business, I have to make my profit. Because obviously, as a business, if I'm not making profit, I might go bankrupt, I will run down. So it's a question that everyone would find an answer, and it's very, very much possible as we go along as well. We'll most likely see some examples of companies who have taken sustainable actions and have still been able to make profit as well. So definitely, we'll definitely look at that. So now I'm not going to go. So before I go into the next set of things, I just want to be sure that everyone is following. So, but for now, does everyone have an understanding? You can maybe raise your hand or just say yes in the chat box. Understand at least the introduction to sustainability, at least have a better understanding of what sustainability as a whole is. You can just type yes in the chat box or raise your hand just to be sure. I just want to be sure that everyone is being carried along and I'm not just talking over my head. Yes, okay, I have more answers. Yes, I've seen some hands raised. Yes, okay, yes, okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the engagement. So thank you. I just want to be sure I'm carrying you along and I'm not just talking over your head. I will try to, there will be a Q&A session, so please, okay, let me see if I can answer, but there will be a Q&A session. So I will just keep your questions in the chat, but in the question and answer dialog box. And at the time of Q&A, we need to try to answer those questions. So I can run through the slides, or you can write down your questions. And when it's time for Q&As, we'll most likely may allow you to speak. And then also answer those questions. But I think I can answer one, which seems to be repeating itself. what's the difference between sustainability and CSR? So corporate CSR, corporate social responsibility, really is an aspect of sustainability. Sustainability is covering the economic, you're covering the economic aspect, you're covering the environmental aspect, like I mentioned, you're covering the environmental aspect. But CSR in most cases, especially when we come to what CSR, a lot of things cover in CSR is corporate philanthropy. So that is when you understand that people do CSR is that, oh, we are going to this community to do XYZ. We've got to this community to do XYZ. But sustainability is ensuring that your processes and your systems are ensured that have been set up in a way that you're considering all the gamut, so the economic, the social, and the environmental aspects of sustainability of your business and the environment of your business as well. But CSR is more like corporate philanthropy. That's basically how I can simplify it for your sake. So I don't know if I've answered your question. I think this is Chigozie. If you are here, you can still answer yes. Chigozie Modu, if I've answered your question on the difference between sustainability and CSR. So really, in all manner of speaking, CSR is just an aspect of sustainability. Sustainability covers the whole gamut of things. So sustainability is more holistic, for lack of a better word. So I've answered your question, Chigozie, just to be sure. You can answer, I think, just answer yes on the chat box. Okay, great. So thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, so so please again, if you can just put your Q&A answers or your questions rather in the Q&A box, I will definitely get to them once I look at it, or when we get to the Q&A session, or at the different breaks that we have just before I go on as well. So thank you so much for your time. So now we understand the aspect of, and the benefits, or not necessarily benefits. We understand what sustainability is about. We understand that this is sustainability. We understand the concept of sustainability. And now when we now come to the challenges, which some of us have also wanted to understand, is that obviously with sustainability comes various challenges, especially within the tech sector. And the focus of this training really is focusing on the tech and telecoms sector as a whole. So technology sustainability challenges. This is very, very, very much, technology and sustainability should go together. I mean, it's common knowledge that technology is meant to aid everything that we do, but it's very, very complicated, especially when we look at certain things like e-waste, for example. As for those of us who function in this sector would understand electronic waste, and according to the Global E-Waste Monitor, the world dumped over 53 million tons of e-waste in 2019. Actually, in 2019, and just 17% of that was recycled. That's to show how much things are changing especially within the industry. How we think that, oh, technology plays this particular role. There isn't much of things I'm doing for sustainability. I'm not contributing to certain things, but in all honesty, we most likely are. And while recycling is an ideal solution to the e-waste problem, recollection and recycling rates are alarmingly low, especially in Nigeria, if you think of it. If you think of it in Nigeria, how many of us here actually recycle, even as simple as our plastic bottles? How many, if I ask questions like how many of us here recycle, I'm not sure, maybe 20 to 30% of us, if I'm being the animals, might be able to say, oh yes, we recycle. We go to restaurants, we buy those takeaway, we say recyclables, that's what we call it, or modern foam packs or styrofoam packs, which should be to a certain degree recyclable. But once we get home, we're taking our food, we dump it, and that's it. There's no, like in the Western world where you have like different types of waste bins, where you have one for cans, one for glass, one for paper, and then one for other items and degradables and the rest. Unfortunately, in Nigeria, our collection and recycling rates are not high. And even in countries with the best e-waste management systems, it's still the same thing. As much as, yes, we are talking about Nigeria here, it's still very different in countries with the best, e-waste management system. I know especially China. China recorded the highest figure. I mentioned 53 million tons of e-waste was dumped in over 53 million was dumped in 2019. China actually recorded the highest of about 10.1 million tons, while US follows with about 6.9, and India ranked third with 3.2 million tons. Imagine these three large economies, these three economies created close to 40% of e-waste in 2019. This to show that, this is what is happening. And I'm not even sure, even for Nigeria, we're not really sure exactly what our consumption and our e-waste contribution is, because to a certain degree, are we even measuring in that regard? But then again, what then is the solution to that? How can we work our way around this? Especially, we can offer end of life solutions. When a product reaches a point where it's no longer functional, that means offering a take back program. So, okay, basically, let's say for our phones, for example, say, oh, this phone is 2 years, it's 3 years. Okay, I think Apple has something like that where you can just go back to them and they recycle it. We can also recycle e-waste, while here we have even our typical people. I know there are some organizations here which play around in Nigeria would help with recycling. So if your office equipment is no longer useful, it may be possible to just research local organizations that accept donations, and they help to breathe a second life. A lot of organizations do this, especially as the CSR example, is where maybe some laptops in the office are no longer functioning well as they, or not even functioning, are not being used. Maybe there's been an upgrade of systems, especially in the organizations, and now you have tons of laptops. We are turning on generators, we are depending on NEPA, we are in the office turning on lights, fans, ACs. We understand how the climate can be. Not many of us here will want to function and work inside a very hot office, for example. But here we are today and ensuring that certain things can happen. And especially for data centers. Earlier this week, we're having within the office actually here, we're having a conversation about data centers. And thousands of data centers worldwide support big and little tech alike, and they allow digital lives to play out. But all these modern conveniences, obviously, at the same time, as much as technology is here, they pose an environmental threat. For example, I think it's Microsoft, for example, yes, who have underwater data centers. How then, yes, as much as they're providing a solution, because the underwater data centers allow for a better cooling of the system, rather than having to run generators, run windmills, run a lot of things just to power the data centers and cool them down. And then the most amount of energy is needed, around 1% of global energy to support the internet infrastructure and day-to-day operations. We are here, Google, we just say, oh, Google it, or most of us have Gmail accounts or Yahoo accounts, so even hosting websites, and by 2040, the ICT sector globally would likely account for 14% of global carbon emissions. And much of that energy is wasted in the form of heat emitted by hardware components, which is needed to necessitate the cooling systems and all that. So for those of us who are in the tech sector, I'm sure you will understand how key this very much is. So that is why a lot of people, especially nowadays, are now running into cloud operations, and aim to run cloud operations in regions. So basically, we can decide to run cloud emission in regions where, portion of electricity are generated from renewables and not fossil fuel. That's the very, very, very much essential thing that we can do, for example. And then we come to employee rights. And yes, like I mentioned, so now you've kind of talked about the environment, you've talked about environment, but now you're not talking about, the people, employees. And a lot of people want to nowadays we are hearing everybody, oh, working in tech, working in tech. And the world enjoys the tech benefits with little concern about the processes and the people involved. There are a lot of people, especially involved in the tech industry. And they have to software engineers, software mechanics, data mechanics. There are a lot of them. And however, some tech companies' working condition, even the working conditions of their suppliers are far from sustainable, unfortunately. For instance, the hiring policies and working condition at an organization I think in the Western in China or something, a Chinese firm that I think it makes components for Apple products, have come under fire in recent times. And the ILO, I think the 2013 ILO on environmental sustainability and decent work has set the tone for what is acceptable. So these are certain things that as you go out as an organization, you can even adopt certain practices. This is where we start speaking about what can you do. Basically, you can start to adopt sets. These are the challenges. So I'm kind of even trying to propose the challenges at the same time. What can be done to kind of offset the challenges. And just like I mentioned to a colleague, I think when I was thinking about it, sometimes in an effort to, when you're providing a solution, sometimes in the provision of that solution, you're actually creating more problems than you didn't envisage, yes. As you're providing a solution, yes, but a problem is going to come from that. Which sometimes you will have done a risk analysis to determine what problems may have occurred and how we can actually offset that. But some of them may occur and you wouldn't be able to do that. So what can the organization do, especially in the telecoms and telco sector, where sometimes a lot of the people you deal with are suppliers? So you can actually even survey your suppliers about their sustainability practices. The organizations that say, oh, we will not engage with any supplier who practices child labor. It can be as simple as that. And a bigger firm, for example, can play a huge role in creating a chain reaction for smaller firms to follow, because they know that if this big firm says we do this and they will not hire us and they need that kind of fund, they will begin to behave themselves per se. And an example is, I'll give an example, though not in the tech space. It's about British American Tobacco, BAT, where they deal with their farmers. And you know how farmers can be. I mean, we in Nigeria, for example, when the children come home, etc., they can help with the household chores. But what BAT realizes is that many of these farmers sometimes, especially BAT that deals with tobacco and in the farms as well, these farmers will just generally carry their children to the farm, which is not a bad thing. But sometimes these farmers will do this at the expense of this child's education, which then functions as child labor. It may not be child labor if the child goes to school, comes back home, maybe does his homework, and father or the mother says, let's just quickly go to the farm, just help me, harvest some things. Yes, that's fine. But not at 8 a.m. in the morning when the child is going to be in school, the child is in the farm with the father trying to farm. And BAT decided to say, you know what, if you are doing that, they did some spot checks, but if you are doing that, that means we're not going to engage you. Sorry. And obviously, the farmer will think that, oh, that's my source of livelihood. So sends the child to school and does what he needs to do to ensure that certain things play along. And then obviously we come to materials, very, 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 very essential is that tech hardware ranging from computers and monitors to phones to wearables and Internet of Things devices, they require a lot of materials like plastic. Our laptops, the materials that are done for these things. I'm wearing a smartwatch now and I can see the plastic, the silicone, little things, the laptop charger, the monitors, the TV screen, everything requires certain things. And especially during the this COVID-19 pandemic, we've seen environmental changes and resource scarcity create severe material shortages. Those are the things that we can do. So what can we even do to manage such our materials is that while you may be at the mercy of conflicts outside your control, you can still plan for the future. conducting a supply chain assessment, will help you to understand the critical points in your supply chain, and business models where you could create contingency plans. At the same time, you're still also implementing that recycling or buyback program for your company's products, that could help you reuse some precious components, to avoid sending landfill. And I'll definitely go through a case study shortly after this. And then we talk about, carbon disclosure and, carbon disclosure or carbon accounting and disclosure. Yes, so European governments really have started to implement policy geared towards environmental sustainability. And they're putting policies in place to ensure that certain things are done as they should be because of sustainable activities. An economy shaking example on a grand scale was, China imposed a total ban on Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining, particularly over the concerns around the high electricity consumption tied to cryptocurrency, which is something again that we were talking about previously last week with my colleagues here. And that's one of the things that will happen, that Bitcoin, as much as it's providing opportunity for people to invest in, to create financial freedom for people, there's a particularly high concerns about mining Bitcoin, as well as also mining cryptocurrency as well. So what can you start to do is that you can start building your community, your company's sustainability practice right now. So you don't have to scramble when regulation hits. You're thinking ahead, like I mentioned, long-term value. You're thinking way ahead. If anything goes wrong, we are ready to start. And you have to develop a thoughtful strategy, to educate stakeholders, build holistic programs, start tracking data. A lot of organizations in Nigeria, unfortunately, do not track their data, but there are various frameworks out there that allow for you to track your data, one of which would most likely share with you later on in this. I'll share with you later on in this training as well. And then when we bring it to Nigeria, obviously things change. There's urban regeneration, the regeneration of how organization or how the urban, like let's look at Lagos, for example, things are changing way too fast and it's not allowing for certain infrastructure to be built. And some of these things I've covered as well. There's community development and cultural diversity. You can come to Lagos, for example, do certain things, but you cannot go to Abia State or Anambra to do those kind of things. And you have to consider these challenges when you face them. And especially in Lagos, in Lagos, maybe Abuja, maybe Enugu, there are certain states that are very much adept to technology and accepting technology, especially in the north, who are going to not accept certain things like that. And then we talk about energy and water, how we are consuming energy, generator, etc. These are how we're consuming various things, especially for water. Yes, we build our own borehole and we're taking our water like we don't care, leaving taps running, not even know many Nigerians, unfortunately, don't even know the difference between the long flush and the short flush in the toilet. We just go to the toilet and we see those two buttons. Many Nigerians just push the two buttons and flush as long as I'm flushing. But these are certain things that will most likely go. And we have about transport, ecology and the ecosystem and biodiversity. We talk about pollutions that weight climate change, resource efficiency, corporate responsibility, like I mentioned, human rights, social justice and equality, which is very much playing a key role, especially in Nigeria. We have political instability, which is a very key thing that has affected a lot of Nigerians and especially a lot of companies today, and especially also with government policies. The government can wake up tomorrow and say, I think CBN especially, who controls the financial sector, it was a few weeks ago where the CBN came out and said, oh, you can no longer use Naira to buy dollars. And you would be thinking to yourself as a company, how am I meant to function? You need dollars to do this. How am I going to do this? Until they came out and said, oh, it's for political issues. But when you see kind of news like that and policies like that, you tend to think, okay, how am I going to function? And, especially using that same example of CBN coming to say, many banks are now saying you can no longer use your Naira card to buy um, uh, anything in dollars or in international foreign currency. And then so they're kind of forcing our hands or forcing the organization's hands, especially for small enterprises, Many small enterprises might just, open a bank account, small account, trying to move, trying to do certain things, and they have a Naira card. But government says you can't necessarily do this anymore with your Naira card. So they are forced to then start to buy dollars with an expensive, we can see how dollars has increased over the past few weeks, and this is how many organizations are, failing to keep up, especially in the tech sector. So, like I mentioned earlier, there's a case study I would like to talk about, especially when it comes to environmental impact. And so many of us know, Apple, many of us use Apple devices, if not the iPhones or the MacBooks or the Apple Watch and iPad, or it may be just something, just little things like that, even if you're not using it. Like I mentioned, electronic devices such as phones, and laptops have major environmental impact, like what I'm talking about, use these items. And more significantly, the issue of mining for these materials, plastic, precious metals, and the mining process for aluminum, cobalt, silicon.
We're so sorry about that interruption. We're so sorry about the interruption. We'll be back up very shortly.
Okay, sorry about that. As much as we're using technology, we understand, how things are very, very different nowadays. So apologies about that. So I'll just run through. I'll start again from the case study. I think that's where most likely you lost me. Then pardon me to just share my screen quickly. Okay. Okay, so audience back on. Okay, thank you so much for, and apologies for that, network challenges. Um, right. So hope you can hear me clearly just before I start to rush. Just just type yes in the chat box just for hear me clearly. Hello? Example, the mining process for all our items, the iPhones, when they release a new iPhone, say, oh, it's made of glass, it's made of steel, it's made of aluminum. Okay, sorry. Apologies for that. Gone off network has just been very unstable today. Please once again just type in and type in the chat box if you can hear me, just to be sure I'm being heard. Hello? Yes. Can anyone else hear me? Okay, so apologies again. I'll just run through that case study. Apologies for the network. I think I planned for every possible way of network failing, but unfortunately, it has still failed. Apologies for that. Okay, thank you very much for your patience. I think I'm back for good now. I think I'm back. That network will not fail me anymore. Okay, thank you for your patience. So, like I was saying, when we're talking about environmental impact, and especially for devices as well, a lot of large technology firms like Apple, for example, when they're producing phones, we have Apple, Samsung, Techno, Oppo. There are a lot of phones and a lot of technology out there for us to use. And in the manufacturing of these things, you have to get certain materials that will be used to produce this thing, maybe plastic, aluminum, cobalt, silicon, tin. And the process for mining these things, outputs a significant amounts of pollution, especially for Apple. And, along with few large technology firms, Apple also faces accusation of utilizing child labor in its mining efforts, especially in the Democratic Republic of Congo. So this is what I was talking about, I think, earlier on, where as much as you're trying to make profits, at the same time, you have to consider the other processes and policies that you have put in place. And, sometimes where, like Apple may not necessarily be the one directly doing this, maybe there are suppliers who are using child labor. But because Apple is using them for their processes and for their products, Apple is also held liable. And this is what we talk about, putting certain things in place, that if your supplier employs the use of child labor, we are not going to use you. Because in the long run, it may also come back to affect you as a larger organization. But this is a conversation for another time. An iPhone production isn't the only problem. One of the biggest pollutants we deal with today, like I mentioned, is e-waste. And around the world, like I mentioned, we dispose about 50 million metric tons of e-waste every year. That's one of the things, because we are thinking, how do I recycle? I remember, like I mentioned earlier, that the recycle contribution is always very low. So what then is Apple now going to do about this? So Apple is now making a renowned effort to mitigate its environmental impact, and it has continually reduced its carbon footprint each year since 2017. I know in 2019, it announced that it relies on 100% renewable energy for its global facilities. And also, according to their website, the new MacBooks, the new laptops that they just built, consist of 100% recycled aluminum. So basically, they are also promoting the longevity of its devices with an increase of Apple Care for repairing products. So basically, if you call me, you have a challenge with your laptop, rather than dumping it with your phone, rather than dumping it, you coming back and say, okay, please, I want it fixed, or you want to recycle it or anything, they give you another one. They are putting systems in place. I mean, they might not have directly addressed the issue of child labor, but they're trying to address issues of, the environmental impact. And for those of us who may have bought the recent iPhones, I think since about the iPhone 12 or so, they have stopped producing those iPhones, or stopped giving them with chargers or those wall adapters, because they realize that for you to have bought that phone, most likely you already have one. That's the assumption. So they've stopped buying or selling it. But if you didn't have one, obviously they'll sell it to you at another cost. But this is how it comes into that aspect. I asked that earlier. How can an organization make profit and still contribute to sustainable how you can still contribute to sustainable development? I mean, and this is an example. Apple is a $1 trillion company and is one of the largest, companies and tech companies, especially in the world. It's a $1 trillion company. And this is how, they've started doing things and they are still able to make profits. So you can see that it is very, very much possible from this case study that they are contributing to sustainable development, at the same time still able to make profit. And yet they've not addressed all the aspects off their sustainability issues and sustainable issues when it comes to especially child labor, but they are starting somewhere. And this is one of the things that we say about sustainability. Like we say, it's not like you have to have everything at a go. Like, oh, I don't want to start my environment sustainability journey until I have environmental this, I have that, I have that. No, like they say, the journey of 1,000 steps starts with one small step. I think that's the saying how the saying goes. As you take that little step just to ensure that I'm going towards sustainability, then you ensure that you start that process. And with time, as much as I'm going to go through this, and with time, you will see the benefits, especially of sustainability. And then when we now bring, sustainability into the local, regional, and global context, the concept of sustainability recommends that information on performance should be placed in context of how an organization contributes, or aims to contribute in the future to improvement or deterioration of, economic, environmental, and social conditions. When you're thinking of this now, like I mentioned, yes, we are in Nigeria, but at the same time, you have to consider certain things that your organization does, in the context of Nigeria. And then when we now come from Nigeria, we move to Africa. And then we now talk about the global levels. So these are the things that, affect us as an organization, a tech organization as a whole, that you have to consider this aspect. So when we talk about Nigeria, for example, one of the first few things that will jump at you especially is corruption. So how then do you, manage this aspect of corruption within your organization? So you have to create policies, that ensure that the players within your key stakeholders within your organization work around that policy. So a lot of organizations understanding there's a lot of, maybe a lot of us here, if not 100% of us here, have anti-corruption and anti-bribery policies in place to ensure that the staff and your suppliers, etc., are not in the act or carry out in the act of corruption as well. And then we have weak institutional capabilities. We are in Nigeria, there's a lot of things going wrong, unfortunately. And there are certain things that are not in place that would help an organization, especially the tech and the technology and the tech and telco industry to function as they should. And then we have high levels of underemployment. Underemployment is like you're just trying to get people are not skilled enough to handle the responsibilities that you need to handle within your organization, unfortunately. And this is maybe as a result at the same time of weak institutional capabilities. Like example, like facing ASU strike today. I mean, they've been on strike for the past this over 5 to 6 months right now. And the students who are in the schools have become, most of them have had to self-train themselves, to take on certain responsibilities. And by the time they go back to school, come back, and you now have to employ the person might not be as skilled as you expect them to be at the stage of time or the stage point in their life as they are right now. And we have infrastructure deficits, and we also have brain drain. And like this has been trending a lot lately. This is the Great Recession. A lot of people in Nigeria just want to leave because unfortunately the system and the infrastructure is not strong enough to support their dreams per se. And then we will now come to Africa as a whole. So you've kind of covered Nigeria, but you now come to Africa, and I kind of think of Africa, in the poorest region in the world. Yes, nowadays, unfortunately and unfortunately, Africa is beginning to open up to technology, even if unfortunately we are still the most technology backward especially in the gamut of all the continents as a whole. And we are also the most financially indebted, especially when you think of Nigeria. I think Nigeria right now, out of the revenue, I think if it's not between 80 to 90% of our revenue is being used to service debt. And how we then grow if this is what we're doing with our revenue? And we talk about the malnutrition, disease, and poor health infrastructure, environmental degradation, natural resource depletion, high levels of unemployment, again, weak institutional capacities, and poor and inadequate infrastructure. These are the things that affect a lot of us and a lot of tech companies and telcos in Nigeria and in Africa as a whole. And then when we now speak of it in a global scale, we talk about climate change, which is very much key. Emissions, everyone is talking about, net zero. Excuse me. And then we now talk about terrorism and security related challenges. Nowadays we now have cyber security. There's always cyberbullying. Now we now have cybersecurity analysts and cybersecurity professionals who are now being. This is now a skill that is very much needed in an environment and in a global scale where technology is beginning to expand. And we have a mass immigration and growing numbers of refugees. For example, this whole Russia-Ukraine war has seen a lot of people, especially from Ukraine, having to move to areas like Poland just to ensure that they are safe, especially in this time of war. And obviously, we also talk about the international trade balance. So these kind of function as, very much the things that affect the telecommunications and the technology sector and organizations within Nigeria, globally, and in Africa as well. So these are what we tend to do, and this is what we face, the challenges that we face as an organization in that. So this is that an organization is that the challenges actually go out of your sphere of influence. It's not just within the organization, but there are certain things that also affect your organization. Like I mentioned, government policies that is out of your sphere of influence and control. Yes, you may be able to go to the government and say, no, this needs to be done better. But, the government will still do what they feel is necessary to ensure that the country grows or the nation grows. So that would bring me to a quick break. I would like to then engage. I think this was meant to be a group work, but do an exercise together, actually. We would all do an exercise together. So what we'll just do is, remember, we'll just do a quick exercise. We'll just put it in the chat box, and we'll just try and talk it all together. So what we're trying to do is identify and, identifying and quantifying is the first step to developing solutions for challenges. We face challenges, especially with sustainability in in our organizations, our various organizations of all of us represented here today. And so what we want to do today right now is to consider the economic activities of the organization. So wherever you function, wherever you function, and identify, four of each of your organization's potential material, economic, and social impacts, and tabulate your results. So we'll be working on this together. And remember, impact refers to the effect an organization has. So what effect does your organization have or could have on the economy or the environment or the people, including on the human rights, as a result of your activities or your business relationships? And remember, we have to think of this in a global scale, in local, regional, and global context as well. So let's take a look at economic, for example. So does anyone want to give an example just from your organization or two examples of a positive economic impact? So basically, what your organization's activity could have, or the positive impact your organization could have on the economy. So, anyone wants to give an example? Or just put it in the chat box. Really, I'm watching, so maybe I'm just ensuring that we're being carried along. Anyone wants to put it on chat box? Or should I give an example first? So an example really would be, let me just put one example for positive. So positive example would be, let's say, increase in employment rate, for example. So that's an economic benefit for the country and for the nation as well. So that's just an example of something on economic. It doesn't have to be economic. You can give for social and environmental. And we've been talking about environmental. A lot of them have been negative, but we can talk about some of them. So anyone wants to go ahead? I won't. So I'm not sure that, yeah, please, I'm carrying you along. We have to ensure that we are being carried along. So I'm not just talking about sustainability and running over your head. Anyone in the chat box? I'm seeing some hands raised. I'm not sure if we want to. Yeah, okay. Change of source from power to solar. Okay, so that will most likely be an environmental. So that's the use of environmental, so that would be the use of renewable energy. So use of renewable energy. So basically, if you talk about that, so that's basically a positive in the sense of reduction in carbon emissions. So that'll be a positive for environmental impact. So increasing CSR initiatives. Okay, so if you say increase CSR initiative, that will be positive for social, basically improve standard of living, because we can rephrase it. So improve standard of living for host community and community members. Yes, so that's a positive there. We have increase on investment. Okay, so that's for economics. So basically, um, that's basically for your stake for your shareholders. So basically, better returns on investment, really. So that's one thing. So thank you all. So thank you, Murtala Abdullahi. Thank you, Christian. Thank you, Abdulrahman. Yeah, Abdulrahman. Thank you for that contribution. Anyone else want to give a contribution? Increased in empowered women in business. Okay, so this is both. I think this can function as both economic and social, because if the organization employs the use of initiatives within the organization to promote women participation. So that is better gender representation. So that could be a very good positive social aspect as well, and also which would then improve the earning power of women generally, which would then return. So basically another economic. Ease of doing business as a positive economic um, um, economic impact. Advancements in information technology. Yes, that's definitely a global, that's even more positive. So I'm getting a lot of positives, which is good. Does anyone want to give any negative for economic or social or environmental? Anyone want to give any negative? Just even it's one or two, just as much as we're getting all the positives, we have to always remember that in sustainability, we're talking about balance. Yes, as much as we want to talk about the positives, we also have to talk about some of the negatives as well. So ensure, but as much as you're talking about the negatives, you have to ensure that there's something in place to mitigate the effects of the negative. Just like the case study that we've seen is that Apple understands the aspect of the e-waste and have done certain recycle, especially in the manufacture their laptops. Anyone else? So I'm thank you for the engagement so far. But anyone else want to give a go for any negative? Okay, yes. Lack of infrastructure for youth development. Okay, so that may be a negative economic impact because youth development is the future tomorrow, but there's lack of infrastructure for that. Low consumer purchasing power, that is a very good economic negative. We have currency movements and recent loss in global investors. Yes, so that is an economic thing as a result of something that's even out of your own power. Because like we mentioned, FX, thank you, Maritella, for that. FX has been happening so far, and a lot of consumers are not, investors are not really sure, am I still wanting to invest in Nigeria? Okay, my comments are specifically written in the question box. Okay, it said used diesel generators. Okay, so the environmental, basically carbon emissions because of the use of generators and diesel generators as well. That's thank you very much for that, Moladili. Thank you for that. Um, Lack of startup capital, yes, very much so. Reverting to coal for power generation to reduce cost of diesel. So that is both an environmental issue and is an economic issue in the senses because of the economy, certain things that prices are going higher and you want to still make your profits and therefore going back to a less renewable efforts such as coal just to ensure that you manage your activities and infrastructure. So thank you all for that engagement. I'm very, very grateful. And reduce cost of cooking fuels. Okay, I think that's an impact as well for the organization. But thank you so much, and Vicky. Thank you all for your comments and very much appreciate that. So it's encouraging to see that you all are following and understanding so far. So based on this, I hope you've been able to, understand especially, I know some of us wanted to understand the challenges within the tech sector. And so I hope you've been able to understand before I go on. So you can type yes. I hope you've been able to understand so far, the challenges that exist within the tech and telco sector and how certain activities can be done to mitigate these challenges as whole. So you can just type yes in the chat box if you understand these challenges and have been able to understand really what is the way forward, especially in this aspect of these challenges. So just type yes just to be sure that I'm carrying you all along. But if you have questions, just put them in the Q&A box. We'll definitely get to them later on in this section. Anyone, are you okay? Just type yes, or I think you can do a raise of hands. Yes, anyone? Yes, okay, I'm saying one yes. Okay, can I come back? Okay, do you have any question in what particular? I think that's multiple. What particular one are you not sure about? So to be sure, you can just put it in the question Q&A box, your particular question, and I'll definitely get back to that. Anyone else want to confirm for me that they're understanding and they can see the challenges in this especially with regards to sustainability in the tech and telco sector? Yes, okay, I'm getting more yeses. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for the confirmations. That's Abdurrahman, Zainab, Christian. Thank you for your confirmation. Okay, so I'll tell that I hope that's a good representation of everyone present on this training today. So now to the other objectives, like we're talking about. So I've been able to show you. So if you talk about our learning objectives earlier today, we said that one of the things I wanted to learn and take away from today is to understand the business case of sustainability. And you can kind of see that, especially from our case study with Apple, the business case. So what exactly are we doing? Especially because with regards to this, if you look at Apple, for example, especially with ensuring that their materials are recyclable, they're still able to make profits. You still have organizations and people supporting Apple. I mean, even with the aspect of the child labor, I'm sure if they ever address that, you will find that a lot of people, organizations, which we'll get to, a lot of organizations that practice sustainability are more profitable than you would think as well. So that's one of the things I wanted to share with you today, and I hope that you've been able to take that and see the business case for sustainability. And I also wanted you to appreciate and understand the concept of sustainability, and the local, regional, global context of sustainability and how it affects organizations within technology and telcos in Nigeria as well. So I hope you've been able to appreciate and understand these challenges and see the concept of sustainability within this industry. And now we now go into the last objective, which is to understand and see the benefits of sustainability reporting. So now we are going into sustainability reporting, which is very, very key. Yes, we're talking about sustainability. We're talking about what exactly is sustainability, but how then do you now really bring it down into your organization? And sustainability reporting is one of the ways that would help you integrate sustainability into your organization. So basically, like I think Dr. Mina Awanga here has said, the toolkit for sustainability reporting is key. Yes, it's very much so, and that is why sustainability reporting is going to help the organization, to see the benefits of such a thing, to your business. So if, like you mentioned, I think it's a way of saying that you cannot improve what you're not measuring. You want to improve your sustainability practices, you want to embed sustainability in your system. But if you're not measuring it, if you're not doing, how do you measure your carbon emissions, for example? How do you ensure that your policies are being as effective as it should be? When it comes to anti-corruption, when it comes to child labor, how are you ensuring that you're providing the relevant economic value? Yes, your financial reports may be so, but how are you switching this into sustainability? And how are you ensuring that this process is, remember I said earlier that Sustainability really covers the processes and the systems that are in place to ensure that your business functions in a very long term. So your business provides a long-term value for the economy, for the environment, and for social aspects, especially including on people's human rights. This is how we're able to measure these things, and this is where sustainability reporting, comes into play. So what then is sustainability reporting? According to the GRI standards, which is one of the most popularly used sustainability reporting framework, I mentioned, which is something I mentioned earlier about how we want to report, is that sustainability reporting refers to the process of reporting, which starts with an organization determining its material topics, which we'll definitely delve deeper into, based on its most significant impact. We just kind of talked about the positive and negative impacts in various states, and the significant impact and the results in the organization's publicly reporting information about these impacts. So yes, you're talking about measuring your impacts, and then you're now saying, okay, I'm now publicly making this available, which makes you more and makes your organization more accountable to your key stakeholders. You have various stakeholders. You have your shareholders, you have your board of directors, you have your employees, you have your host community, you have the media, you have vendors, you have suppliers. These are your various key stakeholders, and it's very essential that you publicly report about these things. This is where sustainability report comes into play. And obviously, most people find out think, or just like I've tried to advocate and I've tried to hopefully convince you about the benefits of sustainability. But then, what are the benefits of sustainability reporting? What are the benefits of? Everybody knows the benefits of measuring your impact. Measuring exactly what the things that you do. So, what are the benefits, of sustainability reporting? Because it has, both internal and external benefits, and it enhances transparency. Like I mentioned, it's giving you that accountability. Increases accountability, like I mentioned, and contributes to the comparability and quality of imported information at all levels. Someone can pick up a sustainability report, an investor can pick that report and be able to compare your growth over the past few years. If you've been reporting, for example, over the past, let's say 5 years, for example, and because you've been able to measure and track your um your impacts, especially when it comes to, let's say, carbon emissions, when it comes to child labor, when it comes to tax and all those other information, you're able to track your information, because like we all say that, oh, we want to achieve net zero. And you said, let's say you did a report, you produced a sustainability report, for example, in 2010, and said by 2020, like everybody said, Vision 2020, you want to achieve net zero in your manufacturing process, for example. Let's say that's what you wanted to do, and you started reporting that. So every year you've been able to drop, let's say, your carbon emissions in maybe 2010, by the time you're reporting, was maybe like 10,000 tons of CO2 into the air. By 2000 and maybe say 2015, from 10,000 it had reduced to maybe 5,000, for example. And after that, maybe by 2020, maybe by 2019, before you get to 2020, you realize that, oh, this may not be possible for me anymore. Right now, you are maybe hitting maybe 3,000 or 1,000 carbon CO2. And you realize that, okay, this is not the case. And what then are you then going to put in place? This will help you realize that, oh, I mean, you will have seen it earlier that I'm not going to be able to achieve net zero by 2020 as planned. What can I do to shift it? What do I need to do? And communicate to my investors, to my stakeholders, to my shareholders that, oh, right, this promise that I made in 2010 to achieve net zero by 2020, I may not be able to fulfill it. And who doesn't like someone who is accountable and honest in that case? And you are able to control that narrative. That's what sustainability reporting does. You're able to control the narrative of your impact as well. And so sustainability reporting has certain key concepts, which I've been saying. I've mentioned impact, the mental material topic. So impact refers to the effect, an organization has or could have. So basically, yes, you have your made impact, but you also have to consider the potential. So you're considering the short-term and long-term impact. You're considering the intended and the unintended impact. You're considering the potential. You're considering every form of impact that could occur. So which has occurred and could occur on the economy, the environment, or people, especially and including on their human rights, as a result of your activities and business relationships. And when I talk about business relationships, like I mentioned with the Apple case study, it's in the sense of, the business relationship maybe they have with their supplier who is actually using and employing child labor. What is the impact of that on them? So when we talk about material topics, so what is material to you? As an organization, material topics are those topics that represent the organization's most significant impact. Yes. So, for example, you've talked about, let's say, impact. Maybe you developed a list of 10 impacts by the time you sat down to think. You now have to think of what is most significant, especially within the tech and telco industry. For example, if we entered finance, for example, let's use them, kind of compare them. Finance will have issues of employee rights, anti-corruption and bribery, and maybe other topics, for example. And these are topics. But for banks, the most essential one amongst those two that I've just mentioned may be anti-corruption and bribery, because that is very key in the financial sector. But that may not very much play for the telco and technology sector. For the telco sector, it may be more about climate change. It may be more about carbon emissions. It may be more about, how, so for tower cos, for example, they build the mast. What is the effect of this on the environment around the people? What is the effect of this on biodiversity? For example, biodiversity may also be key for a bank, not necessarily because their locations are very, very straightforward. But for a tower core, you have to put towers in certain places where maybe the humans not be, or certain things like that. So you're considering such an impact. So material topic now identifies, you're identifying it first, prevents, mitigates, and accounts for how it addresses actual and potential, negative impacts on the economy and environment and the people. So basically, yes, you have identified that there is a negative impact, though like the case of Apple, like I mentioned, they identified it. So what are they create the Apple Care product, which allows for people to come back and bring their products to them? How are they mitigating it? They're doing that by most likely collecting the e-waste and recycling it, and ensuring that this is how they target e-waste, recycling it. And then how are they accounting for it? How are they providing? How are they being accountable? So this is how they're doing it, and they're able to go to their website and see and say what they're saying. So this is what they call due diligence. What are you doing? The process, what's that process that you identify, prevent, mitigate, and account for how you address your actual, that's very, very, very important, your actual and potential negative impacts on the economy and the environment and the people, including on their human rights. And then we have stakeholders, I've been mentioning that as well. So your stakeholders are individuals or groups that have interests that are or could be affected by organization's activities. Very, very straightforward. Your stakeholders very key. And you have to ensure that you engage them at all times to ensure that you carry their interests along, especially within the development of your sustainable practices. So these are the things that are very, very key, especially when it comes to sustainability reporting as a whole. So sustainability reporting is not just reporting that, oh, this is what I've done. But you have to engage all your stakeholders, take into consideration all these key concepts in developing a sustainability report. So then we now talk about the forensic audit. So let's just do like and let's see how many of us can be acting as CSIs today, or our forensic auditors, our crime scene investigators. So you can obviously, this is an exciting, like a very light icebreaker, for example, but you can put in the chat box. So the emissions disclosure of Michaels and Sons Technology Limited, which is a pseudo company, were found to be lower than industry standard. So basically, they are claiming, I mean, let's say, for example, they function in the oil and gas sector, but let's not use that. And an oil and gas sector is saying, in our extraction of oil, we did not cause any emissions at all. They're saying that the industry standard may be, let's say, 5,000 carbon emissions, and they are claiming they're only doing 1,000. And you come in and they say, okay, please come and inspect this. And as a sustainability forensic experts and other auditors were called in to unravel the mystery surrounding this disclosure. And but they couldn't decide, like, how is this possible? So in your view, what do you think would cause this? How do you think they could be reporting lower standards than they should? I mean, especially within, let's say, let's say if you're using the tech sector, for example, at the same time, if their carbon emissions by the mass, for example, is lower than is expected, what do you think could be the cause of this? Does anybody want to give a go, becoming a forensic expert today's? Anyone want to give a go? No, just in the chat box what you think. We'll give opportunity much later on for people to speak, but right now, just put it in chat box. What do you think would be the cause? What do you think would be causing this kind of, such an elaborate or misconception or misinforming detail and disclosure that these people, Michael and Sons, have given? Anyone? Just put it in the chat box. Anyone? I'm seeing hands, but just put it in the chat box. So I see in the Q&A of oil extraction, possible, much maybe. Okay, I see data falsification. Okay, standard. Okay, very good. Different measurement, inaccurate measurement or poor methodology. Yes, reporting standards not in line with best practices. Maybe poor auditing. Yes, no proper investigation and collection of data on the reporting. Yes, thank you. Data falsification. Thank you very much for all that. Maybe so. So these are the various things that you have to take into consideration when you're considering sustainability reporting. You just don't want to go out there and do any random thing and say, yes, I'm reporting, and just nobody's going to look at it. I'm just going to do what I want to do. No, it's very essential that we ensure that we are carrying in line limited scope of reporting. I may not be including supply chain. Yes, very, very good. You're not carrying along your business relationships. Thank you, Aziz, for that. Olamide, different measuring standards. So yes, definitely. So we have to consider that, they are not using what is popularly known, and which is in line with what Aziz Ogundere had also said, is in the sense of inaccurate measurement or poor methodology. You're not using what is best in line practice or best practice, especially within your sector and especially within the tech and technology sector. So you have to ensure that ensuring and you're doing all these things. So thank you very much, everyone who contributed to this. From Abdurrahman, Oladili, Murtala, and Aziz. Thank you. These are our forensic experts and auditors. Thank you so much for your contribution to this. And Abubakar as well. Thank you. Data integrity, data geography at the time of reporting. Thank you so much for that as well. So these are the kind of things we have to consider when we are doing sustainability reporting. You have to take into consideration best practice, right methodology, ensuring that you are being honest and transparent. As much as they say produce a sustainability report, doesn't mean you just have to lie about it. You have to be accountable to the information that you have put up other and your shareholders and stakeholders to consume as well. So thank you for that. So let's talk about value of sustainability reporting. So this is where you now see the benefits of it. And this is one of the things I wanted to, one of the training objectives for today is to inspire your organization to start considering, sustainability reporting. Many as part of the reporting journey, many organizations experience, especially within over time, different benefits of sustainability reporting. And reporting actually demonstrates your organization, especially within this industry, your commitment to sustainable development, and allows for comparing your performance, over time. And when you're able to measure and align and ensure that you're measuring your performance over time, there's better chances for improvement. Benefits below, I'm about to share with you are some of the benefits that have been identified based on research, on why, especially for organizations that have just started to report. So not even most likely maybe those that have been reporting for 10 years, even those that have reported for 5 years, or maybe 2, they're just beginning their journey. These are the things that has helped the organization. So one of the benefits, especially for internal benefits, is it helps to set the vision and strategy. When you start to do sustainability reporting, it sets the direction by placing the organization purpose, vision, and strategy into the wider context of sustainable development. We're talking about considering, yes, you're Nigeria, global scale as well. And this helps to make abstract issues more tangible and concrete. It helps to ensure that you are ensuring that you're doing the things that you want to do. So for example, in a setting of vision or strategy, you realize that you have a workforce of maybe more male to female, and you realize that you want gender balance, you want gender equality, you want gender equity, you want justice, that kind of thing. And you kind of determine that, okay, this is what is going on globally. And you set a vision. You may be able to realign your vision to ensure, and your strategy to ensure that you incorporate more practices that encourages maybe a more women representation or more minority representation within your organization in that space. And the second benefit as well is it helps to measure performance, which is what I was talking about earlier today, or just right now, is that gives you sustainability requires a comprehensive and efficient management systems. Like we're talking about, like I think as is mentioned, is that when the methodology and adequate method used for capturing data may not be what reporting requires, comprehensive and efficient management systems. Systems that will ensure that you're tracking your carbon emissions, systems to ensure that you're capturing proper employee data, systems to ensure that you are capturing supplier data well enough. It helps to capture such information, and it helps to improve the quality of data, and contribute to your distribution. Data tracking, creates opportunities for improvement efficiently and cost savings as well. Goals and measurement performance and change over time, as well. So these are the benefits, one of the other benefits. And the third is to, manage risk. Sustainability reporting facilitates risk management because you are thinking of negative impacts ahead. When I was talking about due diligence, how you identify, how you prevent and mitigate and account for, your negative impacts. You are able to manage the risk well ahead of time because you're thinking of this thing. The identification of emerging issues, help to seize opportunities and, evaluate potentially that they even occur. These are one of the things. Okay, sorry, I thought I had solved all network issues. Okay, hope you can hear me. Sorry, just put in the chat box if you can still hear me. Am I still being heard? Yes, okay. Thank you very much for the confirmation. Apologies for the network problems. So I just finished with, managing how the benefits of how sustainability, helps to manage risk. And then also employee motivation. We are in a time and age where employees are now very intentional about the organizations they wish to work for. As sustainability reporting increases, engages the workforce in sustainability efforts, increases productivity and attracts new talent and reduces to a certain degree absenteeism. Employees ensure that they are participating in all the organization's activities as well. So these are one of the key things, that sustainability reporting helps to do. And then some of the external benefits is that it builds reputation and trust. By the time you are being transparent and being accountable about your activities and how you are contributing, towards a sustainable development, it's that proactive and transparent effort builds trust and reduces reputation risk while also improving product image and branding. And for example, you realize that many people might be buying those Apple products because they realize that Apple is being environmentally friendly, they're recycling, and because they're recycling, I want to be able to buy their products more. And this is what you can do. And Apple's reputation has grown considerably over the past few years. I mean, like I mentioned, they're a trillion, I think one of the first, if not the first $1 trillion company as well. And then reducing risk, through sustainability management and communication helps to signal quality, good management, and it also helps to secure investment, providing potential for new sources of capital and lower cost. When you are having to manage this and investors are seeing what you are doing, investors are nowadays, considering, how sustainable and how the processes and systems are in place within businesses are in place for better practices. And many investors are now open to such an act and ensuring that what they're investing in and the company they're investing the demands for greater transparency. Engage with your stakeholders. You kind of see what they want from you. It's like if you communicate with your investors, what your investors want. Yes, they want profits, but you realize that sometimes by engaging more with them, there are other things they're looking for. By the time you engage with your employees, what else do they want? They want talent management. They want more women representation, and you're able to build systems in place to address such requests, and reasonable requests as well. Not just any request, but reasonable requests. And regulatory compliance. Sustainability reporting ensures compliance with evolving regulatory requirements at local and global levels. For example, many tech companies and many telcos as well have presence in other countries, and by the time you're producing a sustainability report, for example, like MTN, like the headquarters is in South Africa, but they have a presence in Nigeria. And by the time they start, doing a sustainability report, where they have started, provide and give a detailed information to maybe their South African headquarters, who can now say that yes, they're in compliance to certain things, and anything can change over the past few years, especially in Nigeria as well, where the Nigerian Group Exchange, NGX, has made it mandatory for companies listed in its premium board to produce a sustainability report annually. That is, if they were doing that already, then they won't have to panic to essentially actually do that. And you have many communications telcos and technology firms also becoming, some of them are being listed already, and I'm sure may eventually get to the point of a premium board. But by the time they get there, they're already writing a sustainability report and don't have to be, and they've been, changing and measuring performance and every other thing. So I hope I've been able to share and be able to see, the benefits of sustainability reporting, especially for the organizations, especially for those of us represented here today. So when we now, you have to determine obviously where I am now. So before you even start a sustainability report, you have to determine, now you've seen the benefits, but you want to start this journey of sustainability reporting. You have to determine, where am I now? That's where you come into the prepare, connect, define, monitor, and then report. Where, and this is the cycle that will help to build a report. So when you prepare, it's like, okay, where am I now? And there are various guidelines which I will definitely run through that help to understand where you are, to determine where you are now. So, okay, this is the stage I'm at now. I'm a 1-year-old tech company. I'm a 2-year-old tech company. I'm a 15-year-old telco company. I'm a 15-year-old towerco company. It determines, okay, where am I now? I've never written a sustainability report. We've never produced a sustainability report, and I want to start right now. Where do I start from? You have to now, you go out there and talk about the guidelines that are available for you. Some of them I'll talk about, GRI being one of them, the Global Reporting Initiative, the standards is one of the guidelines. You say, okay, use these frameworks to ensure that, okay, this is where I am now and I want to start. You determine what I want to report on, what do I have in place that I can report on right now, and it helps you to determine what exactly is missing. I don't currently measure my carbon emissions, for example. You realize that, okay, I need to start reporting on these things. What can I put in place to ensure that I can do that? That's where you connect. What you start to connect with your various stakeholders, start to connect with your employees, your employers, your suppliers. I need to ensure that I start reporting my carbon disclosures. And then you talk about define. So Zainab, I see your question. So when it comes to the question and answers, I'll definitely answer that. So please bear with me for that. And then you now come to define. So basically you talk about, okay, now I've connected, so I need to now define exactly what I need to do. Okay, I need to ensure that this and this and this systems and this policy and this is in place to ensure that this is where I need to move forward. What are the gaps in my current monitoring systems? I need to define what I want to report on. And then you now monitor over time. Okay, now this is changing, and obviously you're reporting, and it continues in this cycle constantly, like, okay, from the report, you see, okay, I still have more gaps here. I need to prepare, gather the information, do this, connect, define, and continue that cycle. And over time, your practices become more and more sustainable as a group and as an organization, especially within the tech and telco industry as well. So before I go on as well, I hope you've been able to see, you can put in the chat box, the benefits of sustainability reporting. Have you been able to understand that this sustainability reporting is very, very much key? And when I talk, I think I can answer Zainab's question. When you talk about employee motivation, it's talking about, when you are able to, there's some people that come into your organization, um, you know, care, do certain things, take on time to volunteer at something. Even employees, some employees value that more than the number of amount of money most likely be paying them. And that is how you understand that particular employee, for example. And yeah, because you have that policy in place to support sustainable practices, because that's a sustainable practice, allowing your employees to volunteer for take time off, really, just take time off to volunteer for a particular project out of their working employee. And also, so when you engage your employees, when they feel heard, by the time you're engaging your employees and they feel heard, they feel like you are hearing them. They feel like you are hearing them, you're engaging with them, and you're addressing their needs. That also would employ more, that also encourage between the employees as well. So that's really what employee motivation covers. Kind of comes around to really just that meeting their needs as they should, because you're reporting and engaging, your employees are becoming more motivated to function more and see that your organization is more sustainable. They are proud to say, yes, I work with so and so company as well. So how would sustainability, so Zainab, I hope I've been able to answer your question. You can just put yes. Murtala Abdul Hai, how would sustainability why would sustainability avoid reporting? How would sustainability reporting? So this is what I'm coming to. How sustainability avoid reporting failure? There are guidelines actually to how we can use sustainability. I'm trying to understand your question, but I think I understand it. Is that when you're using sustainability reporting, you kind of think of certain aspects. So these guidelines will give you information on things to report on and how you can report on them. So you don't necessarily avoid failing and like we had with my concerns, doing some unnecessary, um, giving unnecessary figures. Which I'm about to enter, you kind of see that they provide a way, a framework, they provide a way that you ensure that you do not report on one or report wrong figures. They give formulas, etc., to ensure that you report adequately for certain information. So I hope I've been able to answer your question, Maritala. Kazena, so why do some companies not produce sustainability reports? Sustainability reports is not mandated in that particular light. Sustainability report is not like, oh, it's a must you do sustainability report. If you don't do it, like how a financial report is very essential. But sustainability report is not. Organizations are beginning to see the benefits of this, and that's why many have started producing sustainability reports. Many don't because they feel Okay. Apologies for the error. Network issues. I think network has just been bad. Pardon. Okay, apologies for the break in transmission. Yeah, so I hope I've been able to answer Marcella's questions. Technology is not sustainable yet in this part of the country. Everything, I mean, sustainability is a journey, really. We feel like when we sustainable yet, but we are starting that journey. Like I mentioned earlier, sustainability and the term sustainability and sustainable development and the journey towards sustainable development in Nigeria. But journey, sustainability is a journey, and I'm sure we'll be successful and we'll continue on with that journey as well. So now we now go into we now go into not to go into the reporting guidelines. So, like I mentioned, there are frameworks that help guide, sustainability as a whole. And then we have, like I mentioned, the GRI standards is one of the most popularly used of sustainability, with sustainability reporting, especially globally. I think over 500 Fortune or the over 25% of the Fortune 500 companies use the GRI standards for their sustainability reports as well. So if you go online and just search GRI standards, it's one of the most popularly used. And the GRI standards enable organizations to disclose publicly its most significant impacts on the economy and the people, and including the impact on the human rights, produces a sustainability report. And the GRI standards is very, very simple in its way of thinking. And they are the leading, like I mentioned, and excuse me, they're the leading and most widely used global standards for organizations to report on information about the impact. And the GRI standards, they started over 20 years ago, really. And the GRI standards is a set of modular system of interconnected standards. You can go here and do this one, use certain things, but this I'm not going to go into detail about what it's about. It was developed by an independent, and transparent multi-stakeholder process. So basically, it wasn't just people in a room that sat down and developed the standards. It was a group of people, professionals within the sustainability space who came together, engaged stakeholders, the public, volunteers, professionals, the not-for-profit space, in the academia, coming together to develop the standards. It's based on the expectation for responsible business conduct, and is set out in an authoritative um, intergovernmental instrument as well. Also, sorry, it can be used by any organization, regardless of sector, size, or location. So many organizations say, I'm in a not-for-profit space. There's nothing I'm doing. I'm not doing anything for sustainability, but it can be used. If you carry a GRI standard, there are certain things that you can pick from there. By the time, remember I said, you determine your material topics, you determine your impact. It'll be something that you can use within the GRI standards. It includes a set of requirements and reporting principles, some of which I did go through, and also requires organizations to identify your impact and report on material topics. So the GRI standards is one of the most popularly used. And then we have others, such as the CSB industry specific standards. This is Sustainability Accounting and Standards Board. And this is majorly like a way of introducing the financial aspects of sustainability into the reporting. And this is mostly used by companies in America, actually. And then we have the CDP, the Carbon Disclosure Questionnaires. That's what it calls the CDP. Really, as the name implies, ensuring that you report on just carbon disclosures as well. And also we have the European Union Proposal for Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. This is also very popular, and as well as the International Finance Reporting Standards as well, very, very popularly used as well. So these are the various reporting guidelines that exist for reporting as a whole in for your sustainability report. So I hope before I go on, I hope you've been able to understand, what is available to you as an organization, especially with regards to sustainability reporting. And just to round up, really, just before I round up, some of us may be asking, how then, how do I incorporate sustainability, into my organization? How do I incorporate sustainability into my organization's daily activities? What do I need to do? And that's where we're coming into the holistic, sustainability. There are certain things that happen. So when we come on to the first one is like about the company strategy, which is about, structured sustainability reporting. And you've put in place a structured, so it's not just one department that is reporting, but it's the whole organization coming together to ensure that, you know, they play a role in sustainability as well. And it's integrated across the company, and it functions. It's integrated across the company. It produces a length of time. They've been doing it for a while, and it's easy to access. So basically, if you go to the company website, anybody can pick it up. Employees can pick, any of your stakeholders can pick up your sustainability reporting. And then when you now come about, when you go to the second, this is another holistic approach. Another approach would be, sustainability and diversity commitments and incentives. Maybe there will be financial incentives for the board and employees, when you put in place certain things to ensure that you get more women representation. Maybe in the board, for example, you say, oh, the more women representation we have, the more financial incentives we'll give to you, for example. And when we now talk about, especially this is within the telco and technology space, right? When you now talk about your network and operations, public reporting on emissions, scope 1, 2, and 3, for those of us who operate in this space, with associated emission reduction targets. So yes, the emissions are very, very key. I mean, reporting on these things are very key. And yes, they may be negative, but yes, what are you then doing to reduce your emissions? In that light. So basically, you have to have, very, very, very smart targets. You have to be consistent, and you have to also validate the methodology, like was earlier mentioned today about this thing. Then we talk about finance, green finance, number and basically putting yourself in the place that your initiatives are being recognized, that to ensure that this is a corporate thing. It's not just we doing it. It's like we are carrying out this activity to ensure that our environments, our economy, our community are being recognized, and we appreciate their efforts as well in ensuring that we survive. And there we have, the sustainability team. Many organizations, especially within the telco and the technology space, unfortunately, many of them do not have a sustainability team. Some may have, depending on how large, some may have like a CSR department, which is most likely functioning as the, you know, oh, this is the department. If I want to do any CSR initiative, I want to be able to sponsor STEM, I want to be able to do certain things. They might have a CSR department, but sometimes in some organizations, these organizations, also this CSR department also functions as a sustainability department. But in my own, understanding or my own opinion would be, rather than calling it a CSR department, you really want to call it a sustainability department, which will encompass all the holistic view like we're talking about today, which is the company strategy, the employees, and the rest of all the things that we've talked about today. And there we have the consumer and enterprise BUs as well. So these are the business units, enablement of consumer and customers reduction in CO2 emissions, verified and responsible reporting methodology. That's what we're talking about. Again, methodology is very important, especially with our reporting as well. So This then brings me to just our final case study about holistic sustainability, which is about IHS. Many of us here know IHS. They're functioning here in Nigeria, UK, and many parts of the world as well. And they have the sustainability report. And this actually sustainability report, if I pick it up, and when I pick it up, I see, personally, I've been able to see, we can just Google it online, the IHS 2021 sustainability report. You can kind of see what IHS is doing basically in the aspect of all these different areas, corporate strategy, all the employees, what they are doing for the employees, what they're doing for their network and operations, the emissions, what they're doing for finance, the sustainability team, and everything, and all the stakeholders, how they've been able to engage their stakeholders in certain things and ensuring that they produce a report that addresses and they produce their activities and their processes and their systems to ensure that their activities are sustainable to everyone, to the economy, to the environment, and to the people around them. So basically, this brings me to we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but it's a habit. So basically, if you want to ensure that your organization becomes more sustainable, we have to start that process now to ensure that we are ready to take the challenges and we're able to become more proactive in our activities that affect the economy, that affect the environment, and that affect the people around us, especially on human rights. So thank you all for listening to me talk all through today. I think I'll just leave it now for questions and answers. I hope we've been able to understand really going back to our learning objectives. I hope I think I've been able to convince you and make you understand, the business case for sustainability, appreciate the concept of sustainability in the local, regional, and global context, and in the industries as well, and have a clear understanding, of the benefits and value of sustainability reporting. So thank you all for your time. So the floor is now open for questions and answers. But please, for those of you, just to be sure, please, I just want to be sure, does everyone, did I meet your expectations for today? I know many of us had mentioned certain things that we're looking forward to today, but have I been able to address your expectations, and have I been able to answer your questions so far before we get into the main question answers? You can just put in yes if you have understood what we've gone through today. I would appreciate any yeses or raise of hands to ensure that I have not spoken over your head. And this is also feedback from me as well. So have I been able to answer your questions so far? Have I been able to meet your expectations? Have I been able to meet the objectives that we have set out for today's training? Please, yes, or maybe, or no, whichever one you would want to put in the chat box is very much appreciated. Please, you can go ahead now. Is it possible to get a report on this webinar to our various email addresses? Yes, it is possible. Alex Wachuku. Yes, it's very possible. Thank you. I'm sure the secretariat will handle that. So I'm saying thank you. So I'm assuming that the thank you means I've been able to meet your expectation. Thank you. I should be thanking you for listening to me for the past many hours. Thank you very much for listening. Any questions? Any other questions? Questions and answers, anyone? You can put them in the Q&A box. I'm looking for. Okay, thanks for the eye-opener. Is there a data bank we could all feed in our reports? Yes, there is. There are various of them exist. The GRI, I think if you use the GRI, for example, I think they are currently restructuring their database. But yes, the GRI has one, the Global Reporting has one, and there's Corporate Registrar. We are also a member as well. So yes, there is a data bank, and maybe we should even create one. Maybe it's a thought for us internally here. So maybe create one for sustainability reports in Nigeria, really, a platform such a thing as that. So yes, for speaking fingers treasures, yes, they exist, and I'm sure if you Google, I'm sure you find GRI standards database, the corporate registrars, and there's also many more that I can't think of at the top of my head right now. Don't forget to share the slides with us. Yes, I'm sure the secretary should do that. Any other questions? I'm open to receiving questions before, please. Just to be sure again, I know some of us have answered. Have I met your expectations? Have I met your expectations? Please, I would love an answer. Yes, objective met for me. Thank you very much, Ulubenga. Thank you so much for that confirmation. Anyone else? I would love at least maybe five confirmations. I know that, yes, I know there's a lot of us here today. You can put it in the chat box. Have I met your expectations? Have I met the objectives? Do you now understand and understand the whole aspect of sustainability, you know, the concept of sustainability, how you can incorporate this into your business, the little things you can start thinking of to ensure that you incorporate sustainability and your systems and processes are sustainable as well. Any other put? Thank you, Olawumi Sanusi. Yes, I have. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Any other person? Thank you, Dr. Mfon. Thank you very much for that confirmation. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you, Abdurrahman. Thank you so much. I appreciate that comment very much. Thank you. Yes, I'm sure the Secretariat will definitely share the slides at the end of today or before the end of the week, rather, or next week. So we'll try to collate everything all together. Thank you for everyone asking about the slides. It will be shared. Thank you very much, Mr. Edward. Thank you. Murtala, thank you. Thank you very much, Rhoda. Thank you very much. Okay, so I think there are no real questions or any more questions. I think with no questions, I've been able to communicate appropriately and ensure that everyone understands, you know, the whole introduction to sustainability, especially for organizations within the tech and telecoms industry. Thank you very much. I think I will pass it back to Elizabeth now to round up on the session today. So thank you all for your time and do have a lovely afternoon, I think, from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dami. Thank you very much for your time. That was a very expository training. Even though I am in the industry myself, learned a lot today. And thank you very much to everyone that stayed from the beginning up till now. We see your questions and your comments concerning the slides and the recording. We would actually share that as we go along, and you should receive it. But in the case where you have any further questions that you are not able to ask right now, you can send the Secretariat an email at secretariat, or our email address is secretariat@ttswg.org. But we thank you very much, and you can also check out our website at www.ttswg.org. But before we close, before we leave, we would like to get the closing remarks from the Chief Executive of CSR in Action and a sustainability expert who has been in the industry for over 10 years, and we'll be hearing from her so she could give us some sort of context and perspective to sustainability as well, although we have heard so much about it. But just before we all leave, we'd like to give room for that. Please, okay. Mrs. Bekeme, you have the floor right now. So we just want to hear a few things from you before we close out. Yeah, okay. It seems like she's unavailable right now, but I really hope that we've been able to take home a lot of information from this training. I see the thank yous. Thank you very much, Dami. Thank you very much, Dami, for the knowledge. Thank you very much for staying with us up till now. And we hope that you'll be furnished with enough information to guide you on the subject of sustainability within the telecoms and tech sector as a whole, because as I said earlier, one of the things we realized was the fact that there was a lot of confusion as to how the telecom and tech sector contributes to or impacts the planet as a whole, economically, socially, environmentally, in terms of governance as well. And we hope that this training has been able to clarify that for you. If you have any questions, again, you can send them or direct them to us at the Secretariat. And we're also open and accepting members into the TTSWG. This will be telecoms and tech companies that would like to create a change in the sector within Nigeria, that would like to also advocate and join us on this drive for sustainability within the sector. And I believe that that would be all for today. But yes, thank you. I've noted everyone. Okay, I think Mrs. Bekeme is in now.
Yeah, Elizabeth, thank you so much. I'm really, really sorry. I was trying to speak, but for some reason I could not. And I mean, I think you've done a good job rounding up for us. And I thank everyone for really, really participating in, in the training. I do hope, as Elizabeth said, that you found it useful. But nonetheless, we remain available as a resource. I believe Elizabeth would have shared our contact details for you to reach us. If you had any questions that you didn't have answered, please reach out to us at secretariat@ttswg.org, and we'll be willing to answer questions. If you work in the tech space, we're very open to you joining us. We're trying to develop or embed sustainability within business practices across different sectors, and TTSWG is obviously one that with an avenue for driving this for tech and related industries, including those who develop tech infrastructure. And the membership is pretty straightforward. Just go to our website or just go to www.ttswg.org/membership and join us. Thank you so much. Sustainability is not a day's journey. So if you don't have information about a lot of the things that we've talked about, or if you don't know a lot about what sustainability ought to be, what you just need to do is to be more intentional in the way that you carry out your operations, particularly within your business, because you know what they say about charity starting at home. So reach out to us, questions, we're happy to answer, and I hope that you participate in other ways in the activities that we carry on. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Bekeme. And with that, we have come to the end of this workshop and this training. Thank you very much for joining us. And we look forward to you joining us in our further initiatives that we'll be having in the course of the year. And again, if you have any questions, our email address is secretariat@ttswg.org. I think before we close out this meeting, I'm just going to type it in there again, although I have done that over the course of the workshop and the training. But thank you very much for joining us. We have come to the end of this training. For the certificate of attendance, we'll be sending that as well over the course of the week to everyone that has attended. Thank you again. Let me just type in the information. Secretariat. Yes. Thank you. You can feel free to leave before we end it.